Hi, my name is Eddie Vernier, and today we're going to show you how to build this simple but elegant storage bench. We're going to use some fun building techniques with basic power tools and hand tools, and I'll even show you a few tricks of the trade. So today's project is going to be built in the great outdoors. I've built woodworking projects in the garage, in a workshop, even in the room where it now resides. So don't sweat it if you don't have an industrial workshop. Just set yourself up a safe and organized work area and you're ready to go. So how do you get started building a storage bench? So we're going to build this storage bench with this cushion in mind. The cushion is, 3 inches by 18 inches by 42 inches. So we're going to build a storage bench around this cushion. Don't you need like a plan or something to get started? With our measurement, we can start with making our first leg. We wanted the top of the bench lid to match our patio chair height, and that measurement is 17 inches. Since 17 inches is the bench height, we will cut the leg at 18.5 inches. So when the top rail of 1.5 inches is attached, we will have a total of 20 inches. This will give us a perfect pocket for our top cushion. We decided on a 3-inch height from the floor to the bottom of the side panels. So now it's time to make a jig.
Getting jiggy with it. Getting jiggy with it.
Yes, Will Smith, a jig is a lively dance with leaping movements, but also a jig is a device that holds a piece of work and guides the tools operating on it. That'll be more of the jig that we'll use today. So let's take a look at our jig. The jig, I actually didn't videotape me putting it together, but I did videotape me taking it apart. So I reversed the footage, the magic of Hollywood. Anyway, you'll see that I went ahead and sandwiched the leg in between two 2x4s. They're all 1.5 inches high. Then I had some 3/4 inch plywood rippings, and I'm going to put those on either side of the cut for the router base to glide alongside of. So I put both sides down, and then I had a little piece of 3/4 inch that I put down in between the 2x4s. That's going to keep the leg from sliding up and down. Then I put my other piece of fence on for the top part. Then I put the leg in, and you'll notice I put a set screw on the end. That'll hold the leg in from moving up and down. Then come back with our last piece of fence, screw it on down, and then we are ready to go ahead with the router and router out that cut. It's now time for a sneak preview. I jumped ahead a little bit to show you what this mortise cut will look like when it's done. Don't worry, we'll get back to how we did it in just a second. So I'm going to take that set screw out, and there's our leg, and it's got that beautiful mortise all chiseled out on the corners real nice. Now here, that piece of 1x3 that I'm going to put in that mortise cut, which I'm going to call a slot, and that 1x3 I'm going to call a slat. It's got a nice little 45-degree cut on the end, which is called a bevel. That creates a little more of a decorative, traditional look. So I have those two slats in the slots on the leg, and that's going to create the corner for our storage bench. To cut our legs at 18.5 inches, I'm going to use a chop box, better known as a miter saw. So you'll see that I cut the edge off of that leg first, so I have a nice clean cut to work from. I'll measure off of that. Make a mark at 18.5 inches. And when I make my mark, I make the mark so the saw will cut the mark off to give me a real precise measurement. I want these legs to be all the same height. So there's my first one. On the second one, you'll notice, there's a knot there, not real pretty, maybe hard to mortise into. So let's go ahead and clean that up and cut that little knot off. I again make my 18.5 inch mark, and you have your second leg. Today we'll use the plunge router. Notice the bit plunges into the wood. That cut is going to be 3/8 of an inch deep. So we have from the blade of the router bit to the edge of the base of the router 3 inches. That 3 inches is our magic number. So you notice off of the fence where the cut is 3 inches all the way around. That will give us a nice even cut. Okay, one more step before we router. I'm going to create a storyboard. I'm going to make all the measurements on our piece, 4 1/8 up from the bottom, 2 5/8 down from the top. This is going to be where the actual cut goes on the leg. And then I'll grab my trusty square it off. Now, I go on the side and I measure in 3/8 of an inch on both sides. That's going to give me a 3/4 inch cut in the middle. And then I just scribe along with my finger and the pencil on both sides so I have a visual of where the cut's going to go. Now I'm going to put it in the jig, but you know that top piece of set wood is not screwed down yet. So I'm going to grab the tape measure off from the top fence, which isn't going to move, and I'm going to bring that right up to 3 inches where the cut's going to be. Perfect. Now grab that loose piece up above it. Make sure it's nice and tight. You have a good butt from piece to piece. And screw it down. Now that that's screwed down, the top 3 sections are going to be 3 inches from side to side and from the top. And I'll even double check it. Now let's take that piece out and make our actual marks on it, meaning I'm going to write down 4 1/8 in case my memory gets jogged, which has happened. And then on the top, I will measure 2 5/8 from top to bottom. Very nice. And then of course 3/8 on either side of that cut, up and down. So this will be a guide to go off of. And then I'm like, well, maybe I should mark the top and bottom too. So here's the top being marked, and then the bottom being marked. All right, the storyboard is made. Let's go ahead and put it in place, because now it's time to router it. So lock it in, put your set screw in on the bottom, grab your bottom fence piece, screw it down. I've already made some pencil marks on there, so I knew where it went. But again, I'm going to double check everything, because our next step is pull out the plunge router and plunge some wood. And let's get started and have some fun. Okay, so this is actually the second leg that we'll be working on. The first one came out very nice. So now we're going to get our next piece, and I want to inspect it. So I'm going to find, what's going to be the outside of the leg and what's the best inside cuts, less knots or any imperfections. So hopefully I cut the pieces pretty good to where I don't have too many. But maybe I'll make an X on 2 sides that I favor. Next, I'm going to set that in between the 2 2x4s. Some pieces are going to fit a little tight, some a little loose. So now I'm going to set my set screw in on the end. I noticed there's a little bit of wiggle in it. So I'm going to grab some sawdust actually and just kind of wedge it in with the sawdust so it doesn't move around too much. And then I'll put the bottom fence on, screw that down. Now it's time to router. Now I'm going to be routering on the inside of this jig. So when you router on the inside, you want to go clockwise. On the outside of something, counterclockwise. Now notice on the router, there's a flat side. I wouldn't really prefer to have that on there, but that's the way it came. So with this particular operation, I got to make sure, after I plunge the router down, make sure it's at the correct depth. Double check, because there's a little guide that you can go by. Make sure you're at your 3/8. And notice I'm going clockwise. So I'm starting away from me against the fence, pushing against with enough strength so it doesn't move around too much. But move it around so that flat part doesn't ride up against the fence, because then that would mess up our measurements and we have to throw the piece away. Whenever I router, I try to go through it twice to clean up any type of debris or something I haven't hit the first time. I'll turn the router off, pull it out, set it on its side or its back. Never put it down where the router bit is. So now I'm going to pull out my chisel. It's a 3/4 inch chisel, and we'll line that up and hammer it down. So I'm going to clean up those rounded corners that I have with the chisel. That'll make it a nice, easy slot for the 1x3 slat that we're going to end up doing in just a little bit. Then you pull out your bottom fence, pull out your set screw. Now, very important, when you take out your piece, make sure you just spin it. Don't flip it upside down, because then your measurements will be off and you'll have 2 slots that won't line up, which will make your storage bench look a little odd. So I'm going to grab sawdust left over from the router, Just kind of stick them in there and maybe hammer them down if I have to. And then the bottom fence. Time for some more routering. And I don't have to measure anything because I know that jig is set because we double, triple, quadruple checked it. That 3 inches all the way around, which of course is the space off the base. So again, spark up your router and then plunge it down. Oh, here, I'm going to show you how to do it. So there's my guide. So if I plunge it down and go to the guide, boom, that tells me that I'm at my depth. And the depth is going to be 3/8 of an inch. So again, you want to go into a clockwise formation on the inside of the jig, making sure that your base of your router is flat to the ground. And usually the router kind of blows the sawdust out of there. But make sure your base is up tight against the fence all the way around. So again, I'm going to go around all the way twice. And I'm going to go ahead and shut off the router. Very carefully set it down. So now we'll go back with our 3/4 inch chisel. Get in there and chisel out those pieces of the corner. So you have a nice square corner. Let's go ahead and take out that bottom fence. Pull out our piece. And voila. Here we go. There is your corner leg of your storage bench. Very nice. Well, thank you for joining us on our first part of the storage bench. The next 3 parts are going to go a lot faster, a lot easier, a lot more fun. This one was a lot to dump on you, I know. But now all that's out of the way, let's have some fun, cut some more pieces of wood, put this thing together and paint it, and then you, my friend, will have your own storage bench. We'll see you for part 2 in just a bit.